Welcome, 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 everyone. Let's try this again. I am Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. Thank you for coming today. Let's see if we have the stream started.
It's working.
Excellent. Welcome to this October 31st edition, the Halloween edition of Lawful Masses Comment Review, our third comment review. We are, of course, Lawful Masses, a legal education channel started by none other than yours truly, your favorite copyright attorney, Leonard French. I am an actively practicing copyright attorney here in Pennsylvania. And yes, if you immediately thought, wait a second, copyright, Pennsylvania, now you know why I have enough time for the show. Our mission, to educate you, our lawful masses. Thank you very much to everyone in the virtual studio today. Thank you to Brandon and Joe, who put together today's comments for comment review. And thank you to Technical, who is moderating, and Ms. Kaylee, who has joined us in the virtual studio. You are listening to Now by AGST. This is the Lawful Masses adopted anthem through epidemicsound.com. Happy Halloween! Happy Halloween!
Ooh, spooky comment review. Ooh.
Spooky comment review. Spooky scary. Ooh. All right, we'll let the people filter in for another 1 minute. Literally, and then we will start the comment review. I hope everyone is having a wonderful week. It was very warm here in Pennsylvania. Today seems to be the last warm day, and we will be starting basically fall. We'll start tomorrow, which is kind of interesting coincidence. Thank you, Joe Tyson, for the $10 Happy Halloween donation. I promise to dramatically read every super chat that comes through. Unless, of course, it's unreadable, like, you know what I mean. I'll make the executive decision there. All right, we are almost ready to go here. Welcome, 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 everybody. Thank you for coming. It has been a great month for Lawful Masses. We have recovered from the little dip that we had in September thanks to a bunch of demonetization, and we were demonetized less in October. I don't know whether that's because they're getting good at choosing stories or they're actually getting good at not demonetizing us, but yay. So fingers crossed that this continues. But of course, we still need your support. How else will I pay for all of the hats? Anyway, thank you to Brandon and Joe. We have put together a comment review, which just decided to stop working at this very moment. Why did it do that? There we go. To put together, it does not want. Anyway, I can bring that up manually. Okay, put together a comment review on this week's videos. So they've put together the comments. I have not read them. Maybe I've caught the very beginning of one or two, but that's just here in the beginning and it'll be quickly over. So I think there's some 45 comments to get through, and I've budgeted about an hour, so we should get started right away. Before we continue, though, let me take a real quick second, see if I can fix my Stream Deck, which just decided that it does not want to cooperate. This should be, on. Oh, it's because I changed the name of the scene. There we go. Now it comes up. So if I do this, this will bring comments forward and I can bring it back and I can hide it. So that's how we're going to go today. I realize that it's not perfect. It's a little bit in my face right there, but oh well, it has to be someplace. Maybe I can try to like hide here on the side of the screen, but no, oh well. We'll just do it and I'll just try to take it out of the way so you guys can see my reaction. So without further ado, are we ready to go? So earlier this week, I think it was actually yesterday, we released a video about Leibowitz having responded in the Vox case. This was the case where he was accused of forging or illegally or unethically or something placing his client's signature in a signature form. So the first comment is from A. Hettinger. If forging is a term of legal art and the definition is well understood, why would they need to list the definition? I mean, this is purely being reviewed by the court, not a jury. Presumably the court is well aware of well understood terms of legal art. That is a very good point. If a term of art, if a legal term is well understood, then it probably doesn't need to be said. You know, it's just like, what is that line from Game of Thrones? A king doesn't have to go around telling people he's a king or something like that. So, yeah, if forgery is really the right word or is not the right word, then the judge will figure that out because that's the definition. Or just literally cite the definition that you're going to be using. Next, Leibovitz didn't sign on behalf of his client. He signed as his client. This is a good point. He forged the signature. I'll duck down over here. Signing on behalf would be explicitly indicated by him signing his own name using some other indication that he signed on behalf of someone. So, in other words, if Leibovitz, this commenter is saying if Leibovitz wanted to sign his client's name, he would say Richard Leibovitz, attorney for, plaintiff or attorney for defendant or something, which is how I sign mine, because I don't sign the client's name. However, let me be real here for a second. I can't say that I've never heard, and I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble here, but I can't say that I've never heard of any of my colleagues, especially in family law. This happened a lot in family law. Your client has to come in and sign a bunch of papers for their divorce or their custody or whatever, and it needs a verification form. They have to sign that the papers that they're attached to the verification form are actually something that they've seen, etc. Well, oftentimes, as a shortcut, the attorney would have 3 or 4 of these verification forms and have the client sign them ahead of time. Leave the date blank and then just sign the verification form. And that way, the attorney doesn't have to ask the client to come in and sign the verification form. But of course, that also invites lots of abuse, which is more or less what we saw here in some level. The second commenter then says exactly this. Yes, he may have the power of attorney and the ability to sign, but that means it's his signature, not someone else's. This is some kind of fraud straight up. Next commenter, whose name I can't read, says, I'd think that Vox would have suffered prejudice from the forced signature. Excuse me, I'll rephrase that. Vox would have suffered prejudice from the forged signature. I can speak English, I swear. I went to college. To the inaccuracy or falsehood of the statements Leibovitz forged his client's signature to, even assuming that the tardiness wasn't prejudicial. So, yeah, it's even if there wasn't real bad prejudice against Vox, it's still a very strange attempt to buy a couple days. And shouldn't he just have been prepared ahead of time? This is my problem with Leibovitz is even if he was correct, the sort of cry wolf situation has come up too many times. I'm not saying he's cried wolf, but it's that situation. People have seen it now too many times, and when someone sees a Leibovitz situation, we kind of automatically assume, well, he must be wrong. So even when he is saying here, maybe I could have handled this better, this was only a minor thing. Well, yeah, except it's not just this one thing. That's the problem. It's not this. If it was just this one thing, then yeah, even I would be saying you guys are getting too down. You're too hard on him for one mistake. Like, I've made mistakes too, and nobody held my feet to the fire like that. I can't say that I've made a mistake of forging my client's signature, but that's what he's accused of. I don't know. We'll see what the court finds for that one. Dinvex says, I think the client knows the attorney is an a-hole and thus pretty much is one himself. The judge should force them to bet the attorney fee and duke it out in the ring. So put him up, duke it out, and see who wins. Next. Vern C. says, I thought if you had a power of attorney, you signed your own name and write power of attorney for XXX, etc. Yes, that's more or less correct. And this is not legal advice. It's going to vary from state to state, too, because power of attorney is a state thing. Although I'm sure you could have a federal power of attorney, but we're talking about state things. So yeah, you would generally not sign, John Doe, deceased John Doe. No, you would sign Leonard French on behalf of the deceased John Doe or something like that. You get it. Forrest Pfeiffer says, wow, textbook whataboutery here. Yeah, we've done bad, but what about the other guy? He was wrong as well. And you're correct that that's whataboutism, and I agree that it's bad. There is really something called the doctrine of unclean hands in the law, that a party requesting a remedy shouldn't get that remedy if they themselves contributed even a little bit to the actual problem. So if your hands are not clean, then you don't necessarily get a remedy. And of course, there's lots of spectrum in there. The judge can craft a remedy basically in there. So on the Ubisoft choose cheaters, how about Ubisoft sues cheaters? Spoonerisms there. So Ubisoft had sued a bunch of Rainbow Six cheaters, which is what we're talking about. James F. says, creator of high-quality video games. You should warn your client about perjury. It's a good one. I like it. Proving an opinion is knowingly false is very difficult. I would instead recommend the opiner to a mental health facility for thinking that Ubisoft's games are goods. Now, what does that say about Miss Kaylee and I, who were just playing Ghost Recon Breakpoint earlier today? Like, that was the first thing she wanted to play after she put in a new CPU and graphics card. Also, kudos to Kaylee for putting in her own CPU and cooler and graphics card, and it works on the first try. I think that's worthy of like a little round of applause, actually. What do you think?
Thank you. It is the second
Seriously,
time
like
I've done that.
I'm impressed when an experienced person does it, and you're not, a big computer like builder nerd person. This is like your second computer.
No, like it worked last time.
I'm really impressed. All right. Next, Matt 2. We found out this is pronounced Matt 2, not Matt Woe. I think Ubisoft might be trying to claim that their anti-cheat software is a form of DRM. And yeah, that's what they're getting at, I think. And I disagree. Now, we did receive some other comments. I don't know if we're about to look at this comment, so I could be upsetting my future stream here, but there was a Blizzard case. I forget exactly what the citation was, about 10 years earlier, that someone said that the DMCA's anti-circumvention provisions did not require an underlying copyright violation or something, or underlying copyright in order to make use of the anti-circumvention protection measures. And that seems possible, and it also seems really egregious. Like, that's not what the law was made for. But I digress. Rocket Surgeon said, irreparable damage to its goodwill and reputation. Press X to doubt that Ubisoft has any goodwill left to damage. As evidenced by their earnings report or whatever from last Friday, where they basically thought they were gonna pull in like $2 billion, and they pulled in $1.5 billion, and that's a big deal for your investors if you don't meet your earnings. So apparently their stock took a hit or something. I don't have it to pull up on the screen, but someone can go Google Ubisoft stock and see what's going on with it. Let us know in the comments, and we'll look at the comments for next week. Sci-Fi says, or Sifi says, all I know is if the cheaters are doing it in multiplayer games, they deserve to rot. I on some level I agree. I don't mean actually rotting. I just mean that, like, that's a scumbag thing. You really shouldn't be allowed to play the game if you're trying to cheat, and it ruins it for the rest of us. If I pay $60 for a game and you pay $60 for a game, but you cheat, you're going to eliminate my ability to have fun in the game, basically eliminate my value in the game. I kind of wonder if there is a claim against a cheater by the players who had to play with the cheater. So in other words, if Ubisoft catches these cheaters and is able to get them to admit, for example, let's say one of them actually gets an admission on the record, could other players who have claims I don't mean they're valid claims, but are the claims valid? If they said, well, that person cheated and that violated the terms of service and that affected my game and therefore I'm also injured because I couldn't enjoy the game for its full value. So what if there was a class action lawsuit, all the players affected by a cheater? Imagine that.
I think the argument would have to be against the person who made the cheat and not the person who actually did the cheating, because you can't prove that you had a game with that cheater. You know what I mean? But you can prove that you have played games with that cheat program. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So now we're talking about the performance part. When is playing a video game crossover into performing a copyrighted work? I think this is a multifaceted question. You also have to ask what kind of game it is. Furuk Finian says, I don't think just playing a video game would count as a performance. Now, playing a video game while recording it might be. Okay. The issue for me is the video game is interactive. So aren't you helping create the video game? In other words, if you wanted to perform a movie or display a movie, you press play and the movie's frames go in sequence from start to finish and the audio goes in order from start to finish. If you press play on a video game and don't do anything, the vast majority of games don't do anything. So are you performing an interactive video game when you interact with it? I mean, yeah, I think there's an argument to be made there, but there's also a spectrum of arguments to be made there. Let's say the game was a drawing game like Mario Paint. Well, now all they've done is given you the tools to draw and you're doing all the other creativity yourself. So are you really committing copyright infringement if you play Mario Paint, but you're painting your own scene? Now go the opposite direction, like all the way, like Hard Rain, a game that's basically a barely interactive story. And
Heavy Rain?
Heavy Rain? Heavy Rain. Thanks. Probably completely different game, right? Heavy Rain, the one from Sony, or the one that was on the PlayStation. It was good. It was a good game. It was not much of a game, though. It was more like an interactive movie experience told through a video game medium. So that's much more likely. I think we saw that with Persona 5, Atlas's Persona 5. They didn't want to let people stream it because it's basically a story-based game and they didn't want to let the story out there. And I think that on some level that's fair. On another level, are you really performing the video game? I don't think so. You're certainly displaying various parts of the copyrighted work, so that it's not a perfect argument. I know that you, Leonard, are very much in favor of the right to repair, but this case made me curious. How do you feel about the right to repair as it applies to software? In other words, if someone sells me a copy of a broken game, should I have the right to fix it? Should I have the right to instruct others how to fix their copies? Yes, the argument is whether you're actually fixing something that's broken or circumventing technological protection measures for the purpose of committing copyright infringement. So, and that's going to be a difficult argument. If you go and sell or even just distribute, but most likely sell, a tool that allows people to crack open their DRM-protected video game, well, you'd better have a damn good use or reason for doing that, because you're definitely exposed, at least, to someone filing a suit for circumventing technological protection measures. Now, maybe you're breaking those things open because you are a historian and you want to write about what the software was like for your history museum of some kind. That's probably much closer to a fair use. But the Librarian of Congress is supposed to be the one who sets the exceptions to DRM, and he or she has not set exceptions for video game DRM to be broken in many circumstances. I believe there was an exception and it expired. I'm not sure. We would have to review it. That's a good one. Why don't we put that one on the list to review the DRM exceptions and other exceptions from the Librarian of Congress? Could Brandon put that on the stories list for us?
Sure. When me and Joe were going over that comment, my question was, does the first sale doctrine apply to software?
It should. It should apply in some sense that you can very likely fix your own copy. It's, can you distribute a crack or tool to help, quote unquote, fix or crack others' copies? That's the question. I think you can play around with your own copy as much as you want. You might even be totally allowed to play around with your own copy and stream the result. There are scenarios where I could think of, like I said, both extremes, because if it's more like an interactive movie, well, then the copyright owner probably has a little bit more control than you think. Whereas if you're streaming Tetris, that's basically it's all you. The Tetris game feeds you pieces and the rest of it is you and how you place them. So are you really committing copyright infringement if you streamed Tetris? Even if Tetris doesn't want you to stream Tetris, I don't think they can stop you, because are you really performing their copyrighted work? No, their copyrighted work is the code behind it. You're not actually showing that code. So at least that extreme example is out the window, and your performance only happens with your input. So you're doing creative inputs. You're literally creating the rows in Tetris. You're choosing where the blocks that you randomly given go and what rotation, and you can occasionally store a block for later, depending on the game mode that you play. And you are the creative input. So if Tetris takes down your stream, they're taking down your stream and your creative content. So arguably, if your stream was a fair use, or you otherwise, they don't have a way to take you down, then they were the ones committing the copyright infringement if they took you down. I digress. On to the Strike 3 copyright troll that was kicked out of New Jersey, Asterisk. Because remember, they were kicked out by one judge in 4 cases, and I can say now that we know a little bit more about it, and it does appear that the other judges are not automatically joining Judge Snyder's opinion, and that we would have to convince our clients to fight, and so that's going to be the same problem we always have, which is convincing clients to fight. So that's that. Let's see what the comments are. Quote unquote, gentleman's special interest film and literature. Yeah, I think that's a great way to refer to adult entertainment without getting demonetized. Gentleman's special interest film and literature. There you go. Entertainment Kononi or known says this was bound to happen. These copyright trolls have abused the system, and now the courts have become aware of it and are starting to put a halt to the abuse. These copyright trolls are on a short list as these judges start putting a halt to these lawyers. Yes, and no. My major concern is that Judge Snyder is one of now 2, and there are hundreds of judges, well, maybe dozens to hundreds of judges that are familiar with Malibu Media and Strike 3 Holdings, and Judge Snyder is like the 2nd or 3rd judge that has thrown Strike 3 Holdings out. I think there was the one Florida judge that threw them out for geolocation tracking technology that wasn't sound, or she didn't feel it was sound. But other judges have not, including Judge Wetra and Judge Hammer in New Jersey, have not thrown these things out. So I have to convince Leonard French can't just walk into court and say, but Judge Wetra and Judge Hammer, you should agree with Judge Snyder. Leonard French has to walk in on behalf of a client. So we have to find a client. We have to find a client who's willing. We have to find a client who, in my fiduciary recommendation, is, it's in their best interest. That my recommendation in their best interest is that it's actually the right thing to do, to pursue the thing with getting the opinion of Judge Snyder to be recognized by Judge Hammer or by Judge Wetra. So it is what it is. It's not going to be as clear as we hoped, is what I'm getting at. Unreasonable Opinion says, hot damn, I hope this becomes a template for other judges nationally. It absolutely can. Other defense attorneys, including myself, other clients, other defendants can all refer to this. It's part of a whole breakfast, though. It's if you've ever if you grew up in the 80s or 90s, you might have seen those commercials. I bet you they still have them today. I just don't watch really live TV and get commercials like that, where they try to sell you a sugary cereal, and then in like the fine print it says this is part of a complete breakfast. Well, yeah, Judge Snyder's opinion would be part of a complete defense. You wouldn't just file Judge Snyder's opinion. You also want to make sure you have the facts and other law on your side. You want to research everything, and lawyers are going to disagree. I might have a colleague who doesn't want to talk, who doesn't want to do anything with Judge Snyder's opinion, whereas I might have another colleague who wants to take Judge Snyder's opinion and show it to every judge in the entire country and everything in between. So it's really up to the individual legal strategy whether or not we think that Judge Snyder's opinion can become that precedential. It certainly could be the beginning of something, and if Strike 3 Holdings loses and appeals, then we might get a second or third, in this case third, Circuit Court of Appeals decision. And that could become much more precedential. But Strike 3, we have ways to get there. I looked up the Judge Lamberth decision from a year ago. They have appealed that, and the appeal is winding its way through the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, and it appears the briefing schedule will be complete in January of 2020, and we'll probably get a ruling sometime in February or March. So you can look forward to finding out whether Judge Royce Lamberth is upheld or whether it gets kicked back to him to deal with Strike 3 Holdings further. Remember, if the appeal is successful, then Strike 3 comes back to him. Smeg Skull says, surely they should have listed a Starbucks IP address by now, then. Okay. I believe that they have. I'm looking for the joke that I missed, because it's probably obviously a joke in here that I missed. But yeah, when it comes back to like a Starbucks or something, I believe that they dismiss the case. I don't have like affirmative statement from them about what the criteria are for dismissing a case, but it seems like about 1/3 to 2/3 of subpoenaed cases actually get dismissed because they come back to something invalid or unsuable or something. Not exactly sure what their criteria is, though. A. Hedinger again. I'll be out of a job. If Strike 3 Malibu can't file any more lawsuits, I'm fine with that. I want to say good on you. Even if that came to pass, which we're nowhere near there today, I think you'd have no problem finding different kinds of cases to work on. And that's what's reassuring to me, that I'm competent enough and smart enough and able enough that if I have to shift my focus to something else, or maybe put in more time to lawful masses. Maybe I won't have to. But then will I be as valuable if I'm not a practicing attorney? I would like to stay sharp and focused and be practicing while also making videos for you. We'll see what happens. It's one step at a time. But thank you. And sorry, I don't mean to step on my studio audio, my studio crew here. Do you guys want to say anything? I'm just kind of getting through it because we're already at half an hour here.
No, we're good. We're good. Okay. I'm enjoying this.
All right. So on Sunday, the video that we dropped was the Case Act, which passed the House of Representatives by like 410 to 6 or something like that. We have a brief update. I was probably going to try to make a video out of this, but I haven't figured out how to make a video out of really short news. Senators Ron Wyden and Rand Paul, who had bound together to make amendments to the Music Modernization Act about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. They have done the same thing here, and they have put the Case Act on hold while they discuss amendments to it. They are concerned about the little people, according to their words. I don't always believe politicians. I don't actually know Ron Wyden and Rand Paul's politics. I'm just going to assume that since they're politicians that I can't trust what comes out of their mouth. But they said their reasoning was that they believe that it's not helpful for the little people, that it's actually going to be really good for the big media creators, and there's not enough in here to protect smaller plaintiffs and defendants. And so they want to explore some kind of amendments. I haven't seen what that is yet. We'll be in touch with you when that drops. So help me hire deity, says Aesop's Tortoise. Where can I hire a deity and how much do they charge? I think I was trying to say hire deity as opposed to hired deity, but I did kind of like Aesop's better. Like, can you just go to the market and hire a deity? Today I need a Hindu god. Like, could I have Ganesha today, please?
Tomorrow I would like to order the Buddha.
Yes. Tomorrow's a very calm day. Could I have the Buddha, please? So if you order Jesus Christ, do you get 1 or 3? Do they all have to come together? Or is it just the 1? I never understood this. Michael Berthelsen says, I think forcing things into small claims court, unless both parties consent to a district court trial, would be way better. So large companies can't pressure smaller parties into submission through financial superiority. At this point, money isn't just free speech, but access to real justice. I am feeling you on that. Money really is access to justice. I have some stories that I'm getting prepared to tell you about prosecutorial discretion and how prosecutorial discretion can be used to favor whoever the prosecutor likes. It doesn't have to be just a measure to prevent the court system from getting clogged by overzealous police officers. Lavushka, that sounds Lithuanian. Sorry, Mr. French, but that pun with torrent isn't so good that it needs to be in all capitals. What was the pun? I forget. It was what?
It was the title of the video. It's like,
will the Case Act trigger a torrent of litigation? Yeah. But like the Case Act, they're going to be suing over BitTorrent downloads, which is what I defend people from. So I'm expecting a flood or torrent of litigation, right? Right. Huma 474 says the opt-out provision sounds rife for exploitation by John Doe lawsuits, where there is a delay in locating the actual defendants. That 60-day timer could easily expire before a large number of defendants are located. I think it's going to be 60 days after receiving notice, not 60 days before, as the commenter says. I think that you'll be able to... I think you really will have the 60 days to respond. Otherwise, attorneys like me are going to be crying foul right off the bat. Jurisdiction problems, motion to dismiss, 12B5 for service or for process, and 12B6 for failure of service of process or something. We'd be all over that. So I don't know that you're going to see too much of that. I don't think so. Certainly, it's a concern. Rocket Surgeon again, if the total monetary recovery is capped at $30,000, does that mean if, say, Disney infringes my copyright, releases a movie, and makes $1 billion, I can get only $30,000? Yes, if you go through this law. So if you think that you've been harmed for $1 billion or whatever, don't go through this law. You would go through normal copyright channels and not go through this law. This is for small claims. This is basically a small claims court. So yes, there is a limit. I do get it. And it does smell like corporate money at work. The thing that I can confirm is that there are also a lot of small creator organizations behind this. There are seem to be a rather large number of creator organizations and other organizations across the spectrum. I don't expect you to take my word for it, but I also am not prepared to provide proof here on this stream. So maybe when we do a follow-up to the Case Act, I'll try to show you who is actually in support of the Case Act as written and who is not. Obviously, the Electronic Frontier Foundation is not in favor of it. They released a kind of like, call your senators because they think it's so bad. I'm not convinced that it's so bad. I think something needs to be done to give YouTubers the ability to fight after false claims, and that means connecting procedures for lawyers. And if these procedures really do connect and lawyers can figure it out, well, heck, you'll see Leonard French's name all over the place because I'll be filing in Copyright Small Claims Court for all my clients. Especially if it's Copyright Small Claims Court and doesn't require you to be a California attorney or a Nebraska attorney, where the client is from. That could be something very helpful too, because then the person could find representation anywhere in the country that they really need to. Because you don't have to go to hearings in front of the Copyright Small Claims Board. This is all remote work, so the person could really be anywhere, like Luxembourg.
Hi.
Electric Gears says, it says $15,000 for each work infringed instead of something like per infringement. So that would mean that they can't just multiply the number of infringements, as in like one file could have been downloaded several times, so that's several infringements. Courts usually decide that that's just one infringement. I think that it would help a lot for individual defendants that are accused of sharing one file. That's going to be a thing. I don't think it's altering it very much. The infringement is based on a couple things. For direct copyright infringement, the infringement is based on the work, the number of works. If it was contributory copyright infringement or vicarious copyright infringement, yeah, maybe it's the number of incidents, as in like number of downloads. At least it would be argued. I think you might quickly reach an absurd result, and the judge might not like you for that. So be careful with that one. On to the Mercedes in front of the murals, the Mercedes murals. Radovan Obel, is Google breaking copyright law for not blurring it in Google Street View? No, it likely would not be, because of the same reasons. It's being photographed from a public street. It's public facing art. It's Google mapping and taking pictures for mapping purposes, not Google taking pictures to hang in an art gallery. So no, I don't think that you could go take a picture. Could you go take a picture of street art and then hang it in an art gallery and charge money to see it? I don't think that's what the law protects. I think it's when you're taking pictures of something on the street and that's in the background. If you just framed out the mural with your shot and then you took that and printed it and put it on the thing, not even like the Cariou versus Prince case where Prince still put an Instagram border around somebody else's photograph. Like, I just mean if you directly put somebody else's mural on your wall in your art gallery and charge the public to see it, I think that's copyright infringement, but I can't articulate it exactly in my head right now, so I can't articulate for you. Kishandrith. Initial thought, public space, public domain. While someone might be held liable if they were selling postcards of the mural, I don't see how a photo or a video that has the mural in it could be a violation. Let's see whether I'm wrong. Maybe they should sue the city that gave Mercedes the go-ahead. At most, Mercedes should put the artist's name as a citation. Sure, I mean, that would be polite if they found out who the art they're basically using the mural. But then again, like, human beings going out into public and hanging out near a colorful space that's like made into a park and all that, that's a normal human thing to do too. Blivy says, I don't think telling people that Mercedes makes money off of Mercedes is going to stop people from buying Mercedes. You might understand the target audience. This is painfully true. And I choked on my drink and it hurt. Yeah. I wasn't trying to make like point of the year there, but I did it did occur to me. People aren't going to not buy Mercedes because there was controversy around whether Mercedes has money or not. Like, that's not a thing. Just think about it. Like, if you're upset because you don't have enough money for a Mercedes, well, you're not in their market for buying a Mercedes anyway. So they don't, in the financial sense, they don't care about you.
I don't understand what that point was even supposed to be, because, like, of course a business profits on the thing that they're selling. That's what a business is, right? Like,
I grew up in Los Angeles, East and South Central, and there are many graffiti murals, some iconic, that many films and photos have used in them as a backdrop with no grand issues. Says Melagoth, and Matt 2 says, I lived in LA for a few years now, and yeah, it would not be hard it would be hard not to get graffiti in your photos. Is that like when you go to the beach and like you can't go to the beach without getting sand in like absolutely everything, and you're like picking sand out of everything for like the next 3 weeks when you come back?
Oh, I thought you were gonna say you can't go to the beach and not get nice looking ladies in your photos. I wasn't sure where you were going with that. In California, maybe.
Who owns a mural? The artist, the party that commissions it, or the owner of the building? Okay, so how does art work? If it's not commissioned as a work made for hire, which has to be in writing, then the artist still owns the artwork. The commissioner owns the right to display the artwork, and the owner of the building really would just matter who they are in that. Like, if they're the one that just owns the building and some tenant is displaying it, whatever. The piece belongs to the tenant, and the actual mural belongs to the artist. So there are some things called moral rights where, like, you couldn't go and then alter that mural and then still call it from that artist, let alone that the artist is now damaged if you altered the mural without permission, because they have a right not to have the mural altered. I believe that they are not allowed to prevent the destruction of the mural if the building is coming down. I'm not sure about if the mural is going to be replaced. I think the commissioning author or the commissioner, or like the tenant of the building who owns the mural might have the right to take it down if they no longer want it up or something. I'm not sure if the artist has any ability to claim that they should get the copy of the work back. If it's a mural, it's on the side of a building, so you'd have to preserve the side of the building. Assuming that the artist could figure out some way to do that, can you force them to do that? Maybe.
So, quick question. Like, I mean, a while ago I showed you an article about a Banksy mural about the European Union and Brexit that then ended up getting mysteriously scaffolding in front of it, and it was painted away. So would he then technically have a claim for
I don't know how that
altering
would
the
work
art?
in the UK, but here in the States, if it was commissioned artwork, not graffiti, if it was commissioned artwork, then yeah, you can't just go and paint over that, I don't believe. It's the Visual Artists' Rights Act, by the way. Or in the Mercedes case, it was the Architectural Works Copyright Protection Act. So we can go into those a little bit more detail, because it obviously sounds like I don't know everything about it either. Uncle Red says the beep beep was the most excellent touch. And Vienticus Prime says I was dying when I saw that thing go by and heard the sound. That was a great edit by Brandon, who put a little Mercedes going across the bottom of the screen. It was cute. Sovereign Citizen gets lawyered. This was a little bit of a clickbaity title. I apologize for that. But on the other hand, we really did do a lot of lawyering of his arguments, so I don't think it was too clickbaity. Meej33 says, Sovereign Citizens have tainted the Informer Pauperous mode for me. Every time I hear it, I think, here we go down the crazy rabbit hole again. I agree. Nextra Life says, ETK, race ipsiloquitur, trespass on the case. Leonard, do not cite the deep magics to me, which... That's really good.
That's a Narnia quote, and I loved it so much, and we laughed so hard, me and Joe. We were like, Leonard's going to love that one.
Nice. I liked it. I did. Doug Sunseth says, the theory behind the Sovereign Citizen movement seems to be a form of magical thinking. If you recite the right incantations, you will foil the evil sorcerers in the legal establishment and gain the result you want or deserve. This works even less well than magical thinking usually does. Yeah, I agree. This is some kind of like cargo cult shit here going on here, that they think that they can say magic words. In some very ridiculous sense, if I really try to dumb down my thinking, and I'm like, if I can imagine what it would be like to not understand what those legal people are saying, I would just want to walk up there and say some words myself. I just still can't put two and two together how anyone logically thinks that's the right idea. Like, I'm dumb compared to many people. There are many people in this world that are much smarter than me, and when I go and read something by a scientist or a physicist or who is much smarter than me, I'm not left there thinking, if I can just figure out how to say the words quark and lepton and I put them in the right order, then eventually I can trick the physics into... No! What? How does anyone think this about the law? Blarg McBlargson says, pretty bold of him to sue for lawyer fees when he's representing himself. He's essentially claiming that he's acting as a lawyer. Yeah, that's a thing. Many people don't realize that you don't get attorney's fees if you don't have an attorney. Like, if Leonard French gets charged with a crime, and I spend... Well, actually, no, let's go back, because crime doesn't work this way. If Leonard French is sued civilly, and I don't hire an attorney, but I spend 100 hours on the case myself, I can very likely... You'd have to look this up in each state. Don't take this as like final word legal advice, but you would not be able to bill the court or the opposing side through the court for the 100 hours. You'd definitely be able to bill them for your costs and transcript fees that we've learned about in federal court here. So at least in federal court there. But you would not necessarily be able to bill them for the 100 hours. Maybe you could get a court to agree to a reasonable hourly rate at your more or less, personal level of some kind. But I don't know that that's the normal. I think that's the outlier. In the United States, we have something called the American rule. Go figure. It's not called the Mexican rule. And the American rule is that each party pays their own fees. Copyright's different because there's a law, 17 U.S.C. 505, that says that the prevailing party may get their fees paid for. They have to apply to the judge. The English rule, which is for England, says that the losing party pays the fees for everybody. So that's different in the UK for as long as the UK may exist. Daniel Stone. Go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to ask, didn't the digital homicide guy try to claim that he had spent X amount of hours and claim attorney's fees for that? I thought that was an argument that he made.
It may have been. I actually don't remember that one. That was 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
That was a while ago. Wow. Hope I almost pressed Adobe. I don't want Adobe. Daniel Stone says, Ed acts like if he says it in Latin, no one can challenge it. I had to think, who's Ed? Edward. So Edward Thomas Kennedy acts like if he says it in Latin. Well, I mean, in a sense, wasn't Latin held over the serfs' heads for many hundreds of years, if not thousands of years? I mean, not Latin itself, but I mean just the idea of obfuscated language or something. That the serfs would not understand. So religion was written in another language. English law was written in law French, so the serfs couldn't read it. So this is a doctrine of control, and so I guess it's understandable that he's trying to use the doctrine of control right back at him, like fight fire with fire. Of course, it doesn't work. Melagoth says, "Sovereign citizen, do you know the law?" Leonard French says, I went to a real law school. Sovereign citizen goes, Pikachu, gasp. Ha. And then we're gonna review the comments from viewer comment review video number 2. Lewis says, you can't read my comment. That's comment right infringement. I like it. I'm going to make a fair use of your comment right infringement comment. Cow or Keku Epsilon says, the more I watch these videos and feel bad, that I don't watch every single one. They're really long, okay, and sometimes I don't just have the focus. The more I think that I just enjoy hearing you, your wonderful team, just talking with and at each other about law stuff. Well, you, my friend, Keku Epsilon, are in luck. We are restarting the podcast where you will be able to hear us just kind of shoot the shit for a little bit about stuff with the law, too, but we're also just going to hang out. We're going to make that a patrons-only thing at first and see how it goes. I mean, patrons and sponsors, basically anyone who supports the channel financially, and the barrier to entry is going to be low. I think we're asking for $1 a month for entry into the supporter platforms. Any one of them would get you the podcast. The podcast is not started yet, and I am still very distracted by something that I can't talk about yet. And as soon as we get the podcast started, I'll be telling everybody. We do a big announcement, probably make a whole video for it, and then you can go and support us if you haven't already, and listen to the podcast there. It'll be additional content. It's not going to be Lawful Masses YouTube channel content. It will be podcast content. The two might overlap a little bit. Like, we might find something super interesting on the podcast that we just have to make a video about, but we're not going to turn the podcast into the video like we do with the Sunday stream or tonight's stream, assuming we do one tonight too. It has been a very stressful couple days, so who knows if I'm going to make it through 2 streams today. Hunger, the Let's Play. I'm just picturing Leonard as the Dos Equis guy. I don't always read the comments, but when I do, I mark the best one and review them on Fridays. Thank you for your comment. Carl the Pagan. Corporations are not people until Texas executes one. I like that. I think I've heard that before, but that's a really good one. Yeah, like we can't call corporations people unless they have actual personhood. Can I stab one in the neck? Like, sorry, that's a kind of a graphic thing to say. But once in a while, I feel like that. You know, corporations can be pretty crappy. They like to hide behind their corporate form and not be responsible for the things they're supposed to be responsible for. And then there's lots of externalities, there's lots of externalizing their costs. They try to push all the costs off of the corporation and onto like the taxpayers. And it just bothers me. There's like no morality to a corporation whatsoever. It really, really bothers me. eCar 100. So when you do this next, since you're including from the previous comment review, you could be reviewing comments on the comment review about comments on the comment review. Yes, we were hoping for comment inception. What we need to do is get people reviewing, leaving comments on the comment review that I review the next week ad infinitum. That's what we need to have.
And then we reviewed this comment, which made it even more meta.
Commander Kaisrath says, this is fantastic, but I'm so tired. I kept hearing briefs and was wondering how you submit a friend of the court pair of underwear. I wonder if we should do that on April Fools for next year. Open up a website that allows you to send a pair of briefs to any court. Of course, it'll be fake, and we're not actually going to send briefs to courts. But could you imagine if we set up like a whole thing about choose a pair of boxer shorts and then like whatever, and like you could then instead like we take you to a donation page where it's like, you know, thanks for your interest in April Fool's joke, you know, send $1 to the public knowledge or whatever, or maybe Lawful Masses will finally be a nonprofit by then, and we'll ask you for donations there, or maybe I'll just ask you for donations anyway.
I feel like that would be a really niche joke though. Like, I don't know how it would scan for everybody.
Oh, we'd make sure that the joke was somewhat clearer. You know, legal briefs, make all sorts of briefs references. Oh, and we're back to the beginning, so that would mean that's the end of our comment review. Do we have any more thoughts or things from... Oh, look, Kurt is in the comments, Kurt is in the chat. Welcome, Kurt. Welcome, Absol and John and T-Bone and Ebionium and Joshua Sweetvale and Chris Large. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I think I even see Huma. I think we read a comment by Huma, I think. So welcome, welcome, everyone. And Forrest Pfeiffer, yeah, you guys got your comments read for comment review. Congratulations. Okay, this is a live stream. This is not just me hanging out, so I'm going to keep this short. Thank you for joining me. This is our last show of October 2019. Thank you to our channel sponsor, Joshua Davis from TandaPay. And I'm sure you'll receive a TandaPay video or two very shortly coming up here. I believe we finally are mostly finished with our script or outline that we're going to be creating that from. Thank you to our October $50 plus supporters, Joe Tyson, Aspernari, John Steele, Gavin Barnard, Eevi, Kyle Mudrak, Michael Pearce, Spirit Bear, Jan Negrey, Daniel Perez, Snorre Wisotzky, Blackleaf, and Benjamin Hitov. And thank you to the $5 plus supporters who are scrolling on that LED panel behind me back there, along with the other supporters. And when we produce edited videos, we have a crawl that will scroll in front of us here, and so you can all see your names. And I'm getting to know a lot of your names here. I see a lot of the same people from month to month, and that means that we're doing something right, bringing you our Lawful Masses videos. So thank you for coming today. Have a great Halloween. I hope it is not spooky scary in the real sense, but is spooky scary in the fun sense. I love you all. Thank you to Brandon and Joe for creating today's list of comments. Thank you to Ms. Kaylee for coming. Thank you to Kurt and Tactical for moderating the chat. Love you all. I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. Have a good one. I'll see you later. Bye.